Hey everyone, welcome to Mountain Beast Mysteries. Today's video I wanted to share a few experiences I had that I think are attributed to Bigfoot. I'm like 99% sure. The first experience happened back in winter of, I think it was 2011. I was on a college trip. I was in an adventure tourism program in college. It was called Adventure Tourism and Outdoor Recreation. And so we were basically learning how to become wilderness guides. And a lot of that program was in the classroom, but a good portion of it was out in the wilderness learning actual outdoor skills. So we were on a trip. It was a cross-country ski expedition in a place called Lac La Biche, Alberta. And if you're familiar with Alberta and Lac La Biche, you know that it's like some pretty serious wilderness up there. There's a lot of like lakes, like a lot of lakes, and just vast stretches of forest. And there actually has been Bigfoot encounters and sightings and whatnot in that area. And I remember there was a little island that we had skied to. The lakes are frozen, obviously, and we were skiing across the lakes. And there was an island that we wanted to camp on. And it was just a small little island. And we get to this island late at night, and we're preparing dinner, and all of a sudden we start hearing these knocking sounds, and they were a series of 3 knocks each time it happened, and they were far off in the distance in one direction. I don't remember what direction it was. This was like over 10 years ago. So we'd hear these, but they sounded like wood on wood, like something hitting a tree with a stick or something like that. Like that's what it sounded like. And at the time, I was quite familiar already with Bigfoot and the whole tree knocking thing, but nobody else in my group was. We were all split into groups, by the way, and we were quite a ways apart, so I guess there is a chance that this could have been another group, but I'll finish the story here and you guys can judge. We hear these knocks in the distance, and I say to the rest of the people in my group, I'm like, apparently Bigfoot's supposed to do that. They're supposed to make tree knocking sounds in series of 3 to like communicate with each other over vast distances. And then I said, if we sit here and wait a little bit longer, we'll probably hear something in the opposite direction. And I swear, right after I said that, we heard these 3 knocking sounds in the completely opposite direction in the distance, and you could hear them like echoing through the forest and lake landscape. It's like dark out because it's in the winter. So everyone was just like, oh my goodness. And that was something that kind of weirded us out because we were really far away from any of the other groups. Like we were split up. Like it was miles probably. And every so often, the instructors of the course, they would show up on snowmobiles to check in on all the different groups. Like they'd be following. They knew certain areas where we were supposed to be, like camping and all of our like routes that we were supposed to be taking, so they would check up on us every now and then. But it was just really weird that in one direction we would hear these tree knocks and then hear them in the completely opposite direction right after, as if they were communicating or aware of each other. And it was a series of 3 knocks. I mean, I suppose it could have been someone chopping firewood or something like that, but it really didn't sound like that. Each time you're gonna chop wood in a series of 3 chops, that doesn't really make any sense. But that was the first experience I had where I'm like, oh, that could have actually been Bigfoot. It's in the right place too, remote wilderness, at night in the winter. We were like, our class was the only people out there. Like there's nobody out there, and it was cold. It was like -30, and I think we were out there for about a week. So that was an interesting experience. Now, my next experiences happened when I was filming Wild Man, My Search for Sasquatch. That's the first film I ever made, the first video pretty much on this channel, and it was the first half of the film documents my dad's experience of having rocks thrown at him on Vancouver Island, but the second half of the film was me and some friends of mine going out to Nordegg, Alberta, and just doing research and trying to find evidence of Bigfoot. And we were all sitting around the campfire at night. It was like, I think it was the first night we were there. I can't remember now. It was like the first or second night. You'd have to watch the film because I can't remember what night it was. We're sitting around the campfire. It's probably around midnight or something. And all of a sudden we hear what sounds like a loud, like, crashing sound. It sounded like a tree falling over or something, right close to camp, just in the darkness. And that scared the heck out of us because we were like going in there kind of nervous and like, are we gonna find something? Is anything gonna happen? Like, we didn't know, but we were all kind of new to the subject, really. I mean, it was still quite early on in my journey into the world of Bigfoot, and the people I was with, they were totally green. So we were all kind of on edge after that. But the next day we hiked off into that direction in the daylight, and we ended up finding what looked like tracks in the moss. It looked like humanoid footprints in the moss. Not very big. If it was actually a Sasquatch, it would have to be a juvenile. But we had also found strange handprints on one of the car windows. If you've been like watching these videos for a long time here at Mountain Beast Mysteries, you know what I'm talking about. I've made videos about them before. These oily handprints that showed up on one of the car windows, and the dust kind of blew over so you could really see the prints. You could see dermal ridges and everything, as if someone put their hands in a couple spots on the window. And we thought that was very strange because we never were touching the windows like that, and we never seen anyone approach any of the vehicles on the way out there, you know, pressing their hands against the window. But the weirdest thing about it was that it looked like there was like oily residue on the window and on the handle of the car door. And it turns out many people have had that happen, actually. And at the time, none of us knew that that was even a thing. So we heard that loud crash in the woods. The next day we find tracks and like fingerprints on the car window. That was really weird. And we were all like, this thing could very well be out here messing with us. And that was probably the most profound, like, I guess, discovery of evidence that I've ever had. The tracks were uncastable. They were in moss, so any plaster would obviously like seep through. I don't know how you'd recover that. If you would maybe put like saran wrap or something in the track and then filled it up, maybe you could lift some sort of cast out of it, but we weren't really aware of any techniques like that at the time. So the next thing that is notable that happened to me was documented in my film, The Supernatural Sasquatch, which you can find here on YouTube. And there was a guy living like 30 minutes or so west of the city of Edmonton here in Alberta. And Keenan from the Alberta Sasquatch organization had been in contact with this guy and his friend for a little while before, because I guess this guy was having experiences on like a nightly basis or so, like having these creatures. I think he said there was 2 of them. They would like go up to his house and throw stuff at his windows, and I guess he actually saw one of these things. That's what he claimed. He said he saw one of these creatures like not too far away from the actual house in the bushes. He lived on an acreage, like, and it wasn't like a remote wilderness. It was like where you would have like farms and stuff, and there'd be like patches of forest here and there. And there behind his house, it was quite forested, and there was like a ravine right behind his house that went down, and then there was like a creek with like a beaver dam and whatnot. And it was all, the whole yard was fenced in, other than like the driveway was open. So the one night I get a call from this guy. He's like, yeah, dude, these things are here right now. You gotta come out here or whatever. I never met this guy before. So I was like, should I go out there? It was at like 11 p.m. Like, it was late at night. I'm like, this could be my opportunity to see one of these things. If what he's saying is true, this could be it. So I'm like, okay, I'll go. I pack up my camera equipment. I have like a shotgun in my car. I drive out there. The whole time I'm just like nervous, because I'm thinking like I might actually see it. I don't know if I'm ready to see it. I was scared. Plus I'm going to a stranger's acreage, like in the middle of the night, pretty much in the dark. And it's winter. I think it was January. I think it was January when this happened. Can't remember now. Anyways, I get to the guy's place. He's standing in his driveway with his dog, like just looking around, and he's like telling me to be quiet. He's like, shh. He's like pointing where he thought they were, and I'm looking and I can't see anything. So we're just standing there watching for a while. Nothing happens. We end up going inside his house and talking about everything that occurred. And eventually we go outside, we walk around, and he shows me like a trackway through the snow. It had went like there's a road in front of his property that went by, and whatever this thing was had crossed the road and like went over a fence and then through his yard and past his house. And it looked like a Bigfoot trackway, and they were really far apart and in deep snow. So that was the really weird thing. We were trying to like replicate the stride, and it was like impossible to do, especially in the deep snow. And it wasn't like a rabbit or anything. You know how rabbits can leave weird tracks in snow that look like weird footprints? It wasn't like that, because these things were deep, like they were all the way down. And eventually I was about to leave because nothing was really happening. But then the guy's like, oh, do you want to like document one of these tracks and like measure it out or something? And I'm like, yeah, that's probably a good idea. Took a bunch of pictures and video clips of it. And as we're doing that, we suddenly hear something incredibly, it sounded incredibly massive, running towards us from like just in the darkness over this ravine. Like it went downhill behind his house, and it sounded like something really heavy was running up that hill, up that slope towards us. It sounded like it was maybe 15 or 20 feet away, and it sounded like it was on 2 feet, and it was terrifying. Like I thought that we were about to come face to face with this thing and it was going to be right there. But after like a short series of like running footsteps, it stopped, and we're just standing there frozen in fear. And I look at him, like the other guy, and he's looking into the darkness, just shaking, like visibly shaking in fear. And I'm just like, oh my God, what is this? And we stop and listen. I turn my phone camera on because that's what I had at the time, like readily available. I had my phone in my hand. I turn on the camera and I'm filming, and then all of a sudden you hear what sounded like a horse. It made a horse neighing sound, which didn't make any sense at all, because this guy's whole property is fenced in, unless there was like a break in the fence somewhere. But we didn't see any tracks when we were walking around the property of any horse. And the weird thing is that the only way a horse could have gotten in was through the front gate, like the front entrance of the house, and there were no horse tracks there either. And Bigfoot is supposedly known to like mimic the sounds of horses and other animals, like howls and all kinds of things. They're supposed to be able to make weird noises. That's what people say. They can mimic other animals, even like babies crying or a woman crying, to like lure people in. Those are some of the things that you'll hear. But we heard that horse sound, and I look at him and I'm like, I guess that was just a horse. But we end up looking down the ravine and there was nothing there. Like there was nothing there. There was no horse, no Bigfoot. A couple days later, I think it was, a couple other people from the Alberta Sasquatch organization came out to investigate the property. There's Keenan and Josh. Yeah, Keenan and Josh. And we walked the property in the day and night. Didn't find any horse tracks. And there wasn't any fresh snow either. So that was the weird thing. There was a trackway that looked like a bipedal, like humanoid, going through his whole property down towards that ravine. They looked like Sasquatch tracks, and that was it. There was no sign of horse anywhere. No horse hoof tracks, no crap, nothing like that. But so we don't know what that was. It really made it seem like there's something more to the mystery of Bigfoot. That's why I named the film The Supernatural Sasquatch, because like something was there and it was big and heavy, like I swear. It sounded like it was massive, and it was scary. Like, I thought we were done for, to be honest with you. And the funny thing is, like, looking back at it, thinking about my reaction of just like freezing and not being able to like move or do anything, I would have been doomed if this thing wanted to like grab me. Like, the thought of even running away didn't occur. I was so scared. Like, so that was probably the most strange thing I've ever experienced. And then there was one time I was hiking to Hidden Lake, which is next to Landslide Lake in the Nordegg area of Alberta. One of my favorite spots to go to do research. It's a really remote lake up in the mountains. It's quite a long ways in too. I think it's like 17 or so kilometers in, and it's like most people do it in a series of days. I always do it usually in one day, but I spend multiple nights there, so I have a big pack with all my equipment. But this one time I was going there, it was in the spring. The snow had just melted enough really to like go in there. Some spots were like really dry and there wasn't any snow, but some spots still had quite a bit of snow, but I wanted to do it anyways. And there's this one part of the trail about at the halfway point of the hike where I noticed an impression on the trail, like in the dirt, that looked like something heavy stepped there, and it was just one track. But it was big, like it was much longer than my hiking boots. And it looked almost like it had that mid-tarsal break that they call, like there was like a ridge kind of in the middle of the track going across it. Because Bigfoot apparently have the ability to like flex their feet in the middle. And it really looked like that, so I'm like, this could be like a Sasquatch track. It's weird that there's only one though. I have to put it in the I don't know folder, basically. So I documented that track, and then I continued hiking. I'm getting further along. I'm next to a creek, and so there's like running water and whatnot that you can hear. And it's starting to get like darker out. And I'm walking along, minding my own business, thinking about that track, and all of a sudden I hear this really loud sound of rocks clacking together. Like, that's what it sounded like. It didn't sound like rocks falling or tumbling down a slope. It was just one rock clack. So I just like freeze there, and I'm like, oh my god, I just saw that track. This could be Sasquatch, like just over there. I might be able to see it. So I turned my camera on and I walked over there, like I was trying to sneak over so I didn't scare whatever it was away. And I'm like the only one on this trail too. There was not a single soul on this hiking trail, so I'm like freaking out kind of. And I'm thinking I'm gonna get to an opening where I can see the creek and I'll be able to film this thing. But when I got close enough to see the creek and the landscape there, like I couldn't see anything. Like there was no Bigfoot, there was nothing. It was just like kind of eerie. And it was just getting dark, so it was kind of like that really added to the ambiance. But yeah, that did weird me out quite a bit, just probably because I found the track first. But Bigfoot are known to like clack rocks together, make noises like that, throw rocks. So yeah, that was another experience where I thought I was gonna see it for sure and didn't end up seeing anything. Actually, I forgot to tell another experience. This one happened back, I think it was 2015. This one was really scary. This is the same place, the same hiking trail. I was at Hidden Lake. I'd hiked there. I had 2 other people with me, and our tents were pretty far apart, but it was in the middle of the night one time, and I've told this story before. I'm laying in my tent, sleeping on my stomach, and at some point in the night, I think it was on the 2nd or 3rd night that I was there, I wake up randomly to the sound of something walking past the camp, like past the tent, past the camp, and it sounded big, it sounded heavy, and it did sound like it was walking on 2 feet. And I'm laying there in my tent on my stomach. I had a knife beside me, so I grabbed the knife. I'm lying there just like listening to these footsteps walking by towards this mountain that goes up. And there was nobody else on this hike this time either. Like, there was nobody on the trail, nobody in that area. This was in the middle of the night. And I hear this thing walking by, and it just fades out of existence, basically. And I just kind of fall. I don't know what happened. I just kind of fell back asleep, I guess. And that was it. It was just like a really random thing where I just kind of like woke up to these noises, and I'm listening to them. I'm scared. I grab the knife, and it just like disappears. And I had actually totally forgot about it the next day until like after we got back to the vehicles. Like, we hiked all the way out the next day, and it was weird. There was a period of time where I was questioning it, if it was like a dream or if it actually happened. But I remember it as if it was real, like a real thing that happened. So it's hard to say. A lot of people have had experiences like that too, where they'll wake up in the night and they'll have something happen while they're in their tent, but they're not sure if it was like a dream or not. They're like, it seemed pretty real, like it actually happened, but I was kind of out of it, you know, like I was in a daze basically, because I had just like come out of a deep sleep, and then I experienced it, and then I guess fell back asleep. So that was a really, really weird experience. And that is one, but when I think about it, it just really makes me think that it was a Sasquatch. I don't know, it's just the area that it was in. There's nobody else out there. If it was a bear, I feel like it would have investigated the camp area a bit more, you know, because we had food and whatnot, like stuff that smells. The bear would have probably gone crazy, or at least tried to investigate. I mean, we had our stuff up in like bear hangs and whatnot, but you would think they would have come closer to like poke around and see if they could find any food, but nothing. It was just like something walking by the camp, something that was big and heavy, and then it just disappeared into the night. That's probably my favorite out of all the experiences. That's one that stuck with me the most for some reason. I think just because of the location and where it was. If you go to Hidden Lake, you'd know how like eerie and creepy it can be, especially if you're there alone. It just seems like the place where you would have a Bigfoot encounter. So that experience is what causes me to keep hiking to that lake and keep investigating that place. And also the footprint thing with the rock clacking. I feel like it's a really good area, and it's quite a ways into the bush. So those are my stories, experiences I've had that I think are most likely Bigfoot, but I guess could be attributed to other things. It's just every now and then you have something weird happens that keeps the mystery alive for you, you know? Thanks for watching this video. We'll see you next time on Mountain Beast Mysteries.